The explosion rocked Kithara Station so hard that Commander Lisa Monroe nearly fell from her chair. Red lights began flashing across every screen in the command center. Alarms screamed through the corridors. She grabbed the edge of her console and pulled herself up, her heart pounding in her chest. "Report!" she shouted over the noise. Lieutenant Amy Collins was already at the sensors, her fingers flying across the controls. Her face went pale as she read the data. "Commander, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. 43 ships. They are Vorax." The room went silent despite the alarms. Everyone knew that name. The Vorax Dominion had conquered 17 species in the past 100 years. They did not negotiate. They did not trade. They only took what they wanted and killed anyone who stood in their way. Monroe felt cold fear wash through her body. But she pushed it down. She was a Terran Navy officer. Fear was allowed, but panic was not. "Get me Ambassador Price." Now, Kithara Station was supposed to be safe. It sat at the edge of Galactic Council space, a neutral trading hub where 12 different species sent delegates to discuss peace and commerce. The station had no real weapons. It had no real military. It had only a small security force from each species, meant to handle minor problems. No one had expected war to come here. Ambassador Daniel Price rushed into the command center moments later. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes that now showed deep worry. "What is happening?" "Vorax fleet," Monroe said simply. "Over 40 ships." Price stared at the tactical display. The enemy ships were spreading out around the station like wolves circling wounded prey. "This makes no sense. Why would they attack a neutral station?" "Because they can," Monroe replied, "and because the Council fleet is 3 days away." Another explosion shook the station. This time it was closer. The lights flickered, and someone screamed in the distance. Monroe checked her console and saw that the Vorax were already launching boarding craft. They were not waiting. They were not demanding surrender. They were simply attacking. All security teams to defensive positions. Monroe ordered through her communicator. "Protect the civilian sections first. Do not engage unless necessary." She had 42 humans under her command, 42 soldiers to protect a station with over 3,000 beings on it. The math was simple and terrible. Lieutenant Collins looked up from her console. "Commander, the Vorax are jamming long-range communications. I cannot reach anyone outside the system." Monroe felt her stomach drop. No communications meant no help. The Galactic Council would not even know they were under attack until it was too late. But she refused to give up. "Keep trying. Find any gap in their jamming. We need to get a message out." The next hour was chaos. Vorax soldiers began pouring into the station through breach points in the outer hull. They were large creatures, nearly 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin and 4 arms. Each arm carried a weapon. They moved through the corridors like a flood of death. Monroe watched the reports come in from every sector. The Alari security team fought bravely, but they were pushed back within minutes. The Kethari had no real soldiers at all and simply ran. The Dorvan tried to make a stand at Junction 7 and were cut down to the last being. Only the humans held their ground. Monroe joined her soldiers at a barricade near the civilian shelters. She watched her people fight and felt pride mixed with sorrow. They were buying time. But time for what? Help was not coming. A massive Vorax appeared on a screen throughout the station. His face was scarred and his eyes held the cold look of someone who enjoyed causing pain. "I am Supreme Commander Thax of the Vorax Dominion," he announced. "This station now belongs to us. Surrender, and you will be taken as servants. Resist, and you will die slowly." General Sirtok of the Alari appeared beside Monroe at the barricade. He was a veteran warrior with blue skin and 4 eyes, but those eyes now held only despair. "We cannot win this fight," he said quietly. "My forces are nearly destroyed. We must surrender." "Not yet," Monroe replied. "What choice do we have?" Sirtok asked. "The Council fleet is days away. No one is coming to save us." Monroe grabbed her communicator. "Collins, Any luck with communications? There was static, then Collins's voice came through. I found a gap. Commander. It will only last a few seconds. Who do you want me to contact? Monroe thought fast. The Council fleet was too far. Earth Command was too far. But there was one ship that might be close enough. Send our position and distress signal to the TSS Relentless. They were patrolling the border sector last week. Sending now, Collins replied. General Sirtok stared at Monroe. One ship? You are calling one ship against a fleet of 43? What can one human vessel do? Monroe did not answer because she did not have one. She only knew that giving up was not something humans did easily. The fighting continued. More alien security teams were destroyed. More sectors fell to the enemy. Delegate Voron of the Kethari found his way to the human barricade. His four thin arms shaking with terror. His species had never known war. They had never seen violence like this. Why do you still fight? Voron asked Monroe. It is hopeless. Before she could answer, the station speakers crackled again. This time, it was not Thax. It was the voices of alien commanders from throughout the station. They were begging, please, we surrender. Stop the killing. Mercy. We ask for mercy. We cannot fight anymore. Please let us live. Monroe listened to the pleas and felt sick. Good beings were dying all around her because they could not defend themselves. And she could not save them all. Lieutenant Collins appeared at her side. Commander, I received a response from the Relentless. Monroe looked at her, and Collins almost smiled. They are coming. 4 hours. 4 hours, General Sirtok repeated. We will all be dead in 4 hours. Monroe checked her weapon and looked at her soldiers. They were tired. They were bleeding, but they were still standing. Then we hold for 4 hours, she said. We hold until help arrives. Thax's voice echoed through the station again. Humans. I see you are still fighting. How amusing. Your allied friends have already surrendered. They are begging me for mercy like the weak creatures they are. Soon you will beg too. Monroe spoke into her communicator so every human on the station could hear her. All Terran forces, this is Commander Monroe. Help is coming in 4 hours. We hold the line. No matter what happens, we hold the line. The humans responded with a single word, repeated from every position on the station. Understood. 2 hours had passed since the attack began. 2 hours of constant fighting. 2 hours of watching the station fall piece by piece into enemy hands. Commander Lisa Monroe wiped blood from her forehead and reloaded her weapon. The cut was not deep, but it stung. She did not care. Pain meant she was still alive. The barricade near the civilian shelters had become the last major defensive position. Human soldiers held the line while terrified aliens huddled behind them. The shelters held over 2,000 beings from a dozen different species. Most of them had never seen combat before. Many of them were crying. Lieutenant Amy Collins crouched beside Monroe. Her uniform was torn and dirty, but her eyes were sharp and focused. We lost contact with Team 3 in the engineering section, she reported. I think they are all gone. End quote. Monroe closed her eyes for a moment. Team 3 was 6 good soldiers. 6 friends who had served with her for years. Now, they were dead. How many do we have left? 28 combat ready, Collins said. Another 7 wounded, but still able to fight. 35 humans against thousands of Vorax. The numbers were impossible. But numbers did not matter to Monroe right now. Only the next minute mattered. Only the next fight. General Sirtok limped over to them. The Alari commander had taken a wound to his leg, but he refused to rest. His blue skin was darker now, a sign of exhaustion in his species. My remaining soldiers want to surrender, he said. I have told them to wait, but I do not know why. What are we waiting for? Help, Monroe replied. One ship, Sirtok said. You are waiting for one ship to save us from a fleet. I have fought in many wars, Commander. I have seen many battles. I have never seen odds this bad. Monroe looked at him. Have you ever fought beside humans before? No. Then you do not know what one ship full of humans can do. Sirtok shook his head but said nothing more. He did not believe her. She could see it in his 4 eyes. But he stayed at the barricade anyway. That was enough. The Vorax attacked again 30 minutes later. They came in waves, screaming war cries and firing their weapons. The corridor lit up with energy blasts. The noise was deafening. Monroe fired her rifle again and again, watching gray-skinned bodies fall. Beside her, Corporal Peter Hayes threw a grenade into the enemy ranks. The explosion sent Vorax flying backward. Private Karen Bell picked off targets with perfect accuracy, her face calm despite the chaos. These were her people. These were Terran soldiers. They did not break. The attack lasted 20 minutes before the Vorax pulled back. They left dozens of bodies in the corridor. Monroe knew they were just testing the defenses. The real assault would come later. Delegate Voran crawled out from behind a fallen piece of metal. The Cathari diplomat was shaking so badly that his thin body seemed to vibrate. "How do you do this?" he asked Monroe. "How do you face death and keep fighting?" Monroe thought about the question. It was a good one. Because if we stop fighting, everyone behind us dies. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is what humans do. Voran stared at her with his large golden eyes. My people have never understood violence. We have always believed that peace was the natural state of the universe. But now I see that peace only exists because someone is willing to fight for it. Yes, Monroe said simply. The next attack came faster than expected. This time, the Vorax brought heavy weapons. The corridor shook as explosions tore through the barricade. Soldiers screamed as they were hit. Monroe saw Corporal Hayes go down with a wound to his chest. 2 more humans fell beside him. "Fall back to secondary positions," Monroe ordered. "Protect the shelter doors." The humans retreated in good order, carrying their wounded with them. They formed a new line directly in front of the civilian shelters. This was the last stand. There was nowhere else to go. Thax's voice echoed through the station again. "Humans, you continue to amuse me. Your allies have all surrendered. Your friends are dying. Yet you keep fighting. Why? Do you not understand that you cannot win?" Monroe did not answer. She was too busy treating a wounded soldier. Lieutenant Collins approached with news. "Commander, I have been tracking the Relentless. They are still 2 hours away." 2 hours. Monroe looked at her remaining soldiers, 24 healthy, 11 wounded. Against an army, 2 hours seemed like forever. General Sirtok sat down heavily against the wall. His wound had gotten worse. "I have sent messages to my people," he said. "To my family. I do not expect to see them again." "Keep fighting," Monroe told him. "We are not dead yet." "No," Sirtok agreed. "But we will be. The Vorax do not take prisoners. Not really. They keep slaves who serve them until they die. I have seen what happens to conquered worlds. Death in battle is better." Monroe had no words to offer him. She knew he was probably right. But she could not accept it. Something in her refused to give up. Something that had been passed down through generations of human soldiers, the will to keep fighting even when all hope seemed lost. Private Karen Bell sat down beside her during a quiet moment. The young soldier's face was tired but determined. "Commander, can I ask you something?" "Command? Commander? Commander, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Do you think the Marines will really come?" Monroe nodded. "If the Relentless got our message, they will come. That is what Marines do. They go where the fighting is hardest." "I have never seen Marines in real combat," Bell admitted. "I heard stories. But stories are not real." "The stories are real," Monroe said. "I served with Marines during the Outer Colony Rebellion. I watched a single squad hold a bridge against 300 enemies for 6 hours. Not one of them retreated. Not one of them gave up." She paused. "When Marines come, everything changes." The shelter doors opened slightly, and a small Dwarven child peeked out. Her large eyes were filled with tears. She was maybe 5 years old in human terms. Her parents had probably died in the fighting. Monroe felt her heart break a little. "Are the bad ones coming?" the child asked. Monroe knelt down to look at her. Yes. But we are going to stop them. We are going to keep you safe. Promise? Monroe took the child's small hand. I promise. She meant it. Even if it killed her, she meant it. The Voraks began their final assault an hour later. They came with everything they had. Hundreds of soldiers poured through the corridors. Heavy weapons blasted the barricades apart. The noise was overwhelming. The light from energy weapons turned the air white. Monroe fired until her rifle overheated, then grabbed another from a fallen soldier. She shouted orders that no one could hear. She watched more of her people die, and still they held. General Sirtok dragged himself up despite his wound and fought beside the humans. His weapon was almost empty, but he kept firing. Delegate Voron picked up a fallen rifle and joined the line. His shots were wild and missed more than they hit, but he was trying. The Voraks pushed closer. 10 meters, 5 meters. Monroe could see their faces now. She could see the hunger in their eyes. Then her communicator crackled. Commander Monroe, this is Captain Nathan Cole of the TSS Relentless. We have arrived. Hang on. Monroe felt tears in her eyes. Understood, Captain. We are still here. Through the station windows, she saw a sight that made her want to cry and laugh at the same time. A single Terran cruiser faced a fleet of 43 enemy ships, and it was not running. The TSS Relentless hung in space like a knife pointed at the heart of the Voraks fleet. Captain Nathan Cole stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, watching the tactical display. 43 enemy ships surrounded the station. His single cruiser faced them all. Sir, the communications officer said, we are receiving a transmission from the Voraks flagship. Put it through. Supreme Commander Thax appeared on the main screen. His scarred face twisted into something that might have been a smile. One ship. The humans send one ship to rescue their friends. This is either the greatest bravery or the greatest stupidity I have ever seen. Cole did not flinch. Supreme Commander, I am giving you one chance. Release the hostages, withdraw your forces, and leave this system. If you refuse, you will face the consequences. Thax laughed. It was an ugly sound that echoed through the bridge. Consequences? Look around you, human. I have 43 warships. You have one. My soldiers control the station. Your people are nearly dead. What consequences could you possibly bring? Cole smiled slightly. The United Terran Marine Corps. The United Terran Marine Corps. Thax stopped laughing. His eyes narrowed. Marines, I have a full company aboard this ship. 200 of the finest soldiers humanity has ever produced. They are already suited up and ready to deploy. If you do not surrender, I will send them to that station. And then, Supreme Commander, you will learn why the galaxy fears the word Marine. For a moment, something flickered in Thax's eyes. Then he recovered and snorted. Pretty words. But words do not win battles. Attack the human ship. Destroy it. The screen went dark. Cole turned to his crew. All hands. Battle stations. Helm. Evasive pattern Delta. We need to stay alive long enough to launch the drop pods. The Relentless began to move as Vorak ships opened fire. Energy beams sliced through space all around them. The ship shook as shields absorbed hit after hit. Alarms sounded. Crew members shouted reports. Cole kept his eyes on the tactical display. His ship could not defeat 43 enemies. He knew that. But he did not need to defeat them. He only needed to get close enough to the station. In the Marine Bay, Captain Kevin Morris addressed his soldiers. He was a large man with a shaved head and eyes that had seen too much war. But there was calm in his voice as he spoke. Listen up. The station has over 2,000 civilians on it. Our people have been fighting for hours to protect them. They are almost out of time. We are going in hot. Drop pods will breach the station hull at multiple points. Once we are inside, we push toward the civilian shelters and clear every enemy we find. Sergeant First Class Eric Webb stood at the front of the formation. He was an older Marine, 40 years of service carved into his face. Rules of engagement, sir? Anyone pointing a weapon at civilians or our people dies. Anyone who surrenders lives. Standard rules. Morris paused. But make no mistake, the Vorax came here to kill and enslave innocent beings. We are here to stop them. Do not hesitate. Do not hold back. Show them what Terran Marines are made of. A voice rose from the ranks. Oorah! The cry spread through the bay. 200 voices shouting as one. The sound was primal and fierce. It was the sound of warriors about to enter battle. On the station, Commander Lisa Monroe heard the fighting above her head change. The Vorax assault had paused. Something was happening outside. Lieutenant Collins checked her scanner. Commander, the Relentless is under attack by the entire fleet. They are taking heavy damage. General Sirtok shook his head. They are insane. One ship cannot survive against those odds. They are throwing their lives away for nothing. Monroe watched the battle through a window. She saw the Relentless twist and turn, dodging some attacks, taking others. Fire bloomed along its hull. It was wounded, maybe dying, but it kept moving toward the station. They are not trying to win the space battle, she realized. They are trying to get close enough to deploy. Deploy what? Sirtok asked. Monroe smiled for the first time in hours. Marines. The Relentless reached its target range. On the bridge, Cole gave the order. Launch drop pods. All of them. Now. Said Saver $7. The sides of the cruiser opened. Dozens of metal pods shot out like bullets aimed at the station. Each pod held 4 Marines in full combat armor. Each Marine carried enough weapons to fight a small war. The Vorax tried to shoot the pods down, but they were too small and too fast. Most of them made it through. They struck the station hull at high speed, special tips drilling through metal in seconds. Then the pods opened, and hell walked out. Captain Morris was in the first wave. His boots hit the deck, and he was already firing. 3 Vorax soldiers stood in the corridor ahead. They had been guarding a breach point. They died before they could raise their weapons. All teams, report in, Morris ordered through his communicator. The responses came quickly. Teams were landing all over the station. Enemy contact at every position. Fighting heavy. Moving forward, Sergeant Webb led his team toward the engineering section. They encountered a squad of Vorax around the first corner. Webb did not slow down. He fired twice, dropped 2 enemies, and kept moving. His team followed, their weapons adding to the destruction. Corporal Michelle Lane took her squad directly toward the civilian shelters. They ran through corridors filled with smoke and debris. Bodies lay everywhere, both alien and Vorax. The fighting had been brutal. They found a group of Vorax trying to break through a barricade. On the other side, Lane could see human soldiers still holding the line. They were wounded, exhausted, and nearly out of ammunition, but they were still fighting. Take them down, Lane ordered. Her squad opened fire from behind the Vorax. The enemy soldiers turned in confusion. Caught between 2 forces, they died in seconds. Lane walked through the smoke to the barricade. A woman in a torn uniform stood up slowly. She looked like she had been through a nightmare. Commander Monroe? Lane asked. Yes, Lane saluted. Corporal Michelle Lane, Terran Marine Corps. Reinforcements have arrived, ma'am. Monroe stared at her. Then at the Marines spreading through the corridor behind her. For a moment, she could not speak. Then she laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had been drowning and just grabbed a rope. Welcome to Cathara Station, Corporal. The Vorax are everywhere. Lane nodded. Not for long, ma'am. Throughout the station, the battle changed completely. Vorax soldiers who had been winning suddenly found themselves facing something new. Humans in heavy armor who moved like ghosts and fought like demons. Soldiers who did not stop, did not retreat, did not show fear. General Sirtok watched a Marine team advance past his position. They were not running. They were walking, slowly, confidently, firing with perfect accuracy at any enemy who appeared. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. "By the ancient stars," he whispered, "what are these humans?" Delegate Voran stood beside him, his golden eyes wide. "They are what happens when a peaceful species learns to fight. They are humans. And I think the Vorax just made a terrible mistake." On the Vorax flagship, Supreme Commander Thax watched the reports coming in from the station. His forces were dying, not slowly, not one at a time. They were being destroyed by something they had never faced before. For the first time in his long career of conquest, Thax felt something he did not recognize. It was fear. The Vorax had conquered 17 species. They had destroyed armies and broken empires. They had never known defeat. They had never known fear. Until now. Captain Kevin Morris led his team through the main corridor of Cathara Station. His armor was scratched and dented from enemy fire, but he kept moving forward. Behind him, his Marines advanced like a wave of steel and death. A squad of Vorax appeared ahead. They fired at the Marines, their weapons lighting up the corridor with bright energy blasts. The shots hit Marine armor and bounced off. The Marines kept coming. Morris raised his rifle and fired 3 times. 3 Vorax fell. His team finished the rest in seconds. "Keep moving," he ordered. "We clear this station room by room." Sergeant Webb led his team through the engineering section. They had already killed 30 enemy soldiers. Webb had lost count, but his rifle counted for him. He checked his ammunition and kept going. A Vorax soldier jumped out from behind a console, all 4 arms holding weapons. Webb was faster. His shot took the enemy in the chest before it could fire. The body fell with a heavy thud. "Sergeant," one of his Marines said, "I am picking up life signs in the next room. Multiple targets, but some of them are different. Smaller." Webb nodded. "Civilians. Move carefully. We do not hit friendlies." They breached the door and found exactly what he expected. 20 Vorax soldiers had taken a group of alien workers hostage. The workers were on their knees, hands behind their heads. They were crying and shaking. The Vorax commander pointed his weapon at the nearest hostage. "Stop or I kill them all." Webb did not stop. He did not even slow down. His rifle came up and he fired once. The Vorax commander's head snapped back, and he fell. The other Vorax hesitated. That hesitation cost them their lives. Webb's team fired in perfect coordination. Every shot found its target. In 3 seconds, 20 enemy soldiers lay dead on the floor. Not one hostage was hurt. The alien workers stared at the Marines with wide eyes. They did not understand what had just happened. They did not know how close they had come to death. "You are safe now," Webb told them. "Stay here. More help is coming." On the other side of the station, Corporal Michelle Lane pushed toward the command center. Intelligence said Supreme Commander Thax had a forward position there, directing the assault. Lane wanted to find him. Her squad encountered heavy resistance at every junction. The Vorax were fighting harder now. They knew they were losing. Desperate enemies were the most dangerous kind. A heavy weapons team blocked the corridor ahead. Their gun was mounted on a tripod, capable of cutting through even Marine armor if it hit the right spot. Lane studied the situation for 2 seconds. "Garcia, flashbang. Thompson, cover fire. Everyone else, follow me." Private Garcia threw the grenade. It exploded with a blinding flash of light. Thompson opened fire, forcing the Vorax to duck. Lane charged forward, her team right behind her. She reached the gun position before the enemy could recover. Her shots were quick and precise. 4 Vorax died in as many heartbeats. The corridor was clear. "Move," Lane said. They found the command center 3 minutes later. The doors were locked and reinforced. Lane did not care. She placed charges on the hinges and stepped back, fire in the hole. The explosion blew the doors inward. Lane went through the smoke before it cleared, her weapon already firing. The command center was full of Vorax officers. They scrambled for their weapons. They were too slow. Lane's squad cleared the room in 15 seconds. When the smoke settled, Every Vorax was dead. But Thax was not among them. "He is not here," Lane reported to Captain Morris. "The command center is secure, but the Supreme Commander has retreated to his ship." "Understood," Morris replied. "Continue clearing operations. We will deal with Thax later." Back at the civilian shelters, Commander Monroe watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. The Vorax forces were collapsing. Everywhere the Marines went, enemy soldiers died. It was not a battle anymore. It was a hunt. General Sirtok sat beside her, his wound now properly bandaged by a Marine medic. He had not spoken in 20 minutes. He just watched. "I have fought in 11 major wars," he finally said. "I have led armies of 10,000 soldiers. I thought I understood combat." He shook his head slowly. "I understand nothing. These Marines of yours are not soldiers. They are something else entirely." "What do you mean?" Monroe asked. "My soldiers fight because they are ordered to fight. Vorax soldiers fight because they enjoy killing. But your Marines fight differently. They fight like they are protecting their own children. There is no hesitation, no doubt, just pure purpose." Sirtok looked at her. "Where does that come from?" Monroe thought about the question. Humans were not always peaceful. Our history is full of war. We fought each other for thousands of years over land, resources, beliefs. We learned that fighting is terrible. We learned what war costs. But we also learned that some things are worth fighting for. What things? Each other, our families, our friends, anyone who needs protection. Monroe gestured at the Marines on her display. "Every one of those soldiers knows they might die today. They came anyway, because there are innocent people here who needed help. That is what drives them." Delegate Voran had been listening. His golden eyes were thoughtful. "My species has always believed that violence was wrong, that it solved nothing. But I see now that we were partially wrong. Violence for conquest is evil. Violence for protection is something different, something necessary." A Marine private approached Monroe. She was young, maybe 22, with dirt and blood on her face. "Ma'am, Captain Morris reports that we have secured 80% of the station. Enemy resistance is breaking down. Many Vorax are trying to surrender. Are you accepting surrenders?" "Yes, ma'am. Those who drop their weapons and kneel are being taken prisoner. Those who keep fighting are being killed." The private paused. "To be honest, ma'am, most of them are choosing to surrender. They seem scared." Sirtok let out a sound that might have been a laugh. "The Vorax. Scared. I never thought I would see this day." The final pockets of resistance fell within the next hour. Vorax soldiers threw down their weapons and begged for mercy. The same mercy they had never shown to their victims. The Marines gave them that mercy anyway. They took prisoners instead of executing them. They treated the wounded instead of leaving them to die. One Vorax officer asked a Marine why they were being spared. The Marine's answer was simple: "Because we are not like you. We do not enjoy killing. We do it because we have to, not because we want to." The officer stared at him with something like amazement. In all his years of service, he had never met an enemy who showed mercy. He did not know how to react. Captain Morris found Commander Monroe at the civilian shelters. The fighting was over. The station was secure. But his job was not finished. "Commander, my team is ready to assault the Vorax flagship. We believe Supreme Commander Thax retreated there when the battle turned against him." Monroe stood up slowly. Her body ached, and her eyes burned from exhaustion. "You want to board his ship?" "Yes, ma'am. The Relentless is damaged but still functional. Captain Cole can get us close enough to breach their hull. We end this today." Monroe looked at him. "How many Marines do you have left?" 172 combat effective. "More than enough." General Sirtok spoke up. "You are truly going to attack a Vorax flagship with 172 soldiers?" Morris turned to him. "With respect, General, we just took this station back with 200. A flagship will be easier. Smaller corridors. Fewer places to hide." Sirtok had no response to that. Morris saluted Monroe and turned to leave. He had a supreme commander to catch. The TSS Relentless limped toward the Vorax flagship. The cruiser was badly damaged. Scorch marks covered its hull, several sections were open to space, but the engines still worked, and the crew still fought. Captain Nathan Cole watched the massive enemy ship grow larger on his screen. "How close do we need to get?" 500 meters for breach pods, the tactical officer replied. "Their point defense is damaged, but still active." "It will be dangerous," Cole nodded. "The Marines have done their part. Now we do ours. Helm, take us in. All available power to forward shields." The Relentless surged forward. The Vorax flagship opened fire, but its weapons were not designed for close-range combat. Most shots missed. The ones that hit shook the cruiser, but did not stop it. In the launch bay, Captain Kevin Morris stood with his Marines. Corporal Michelle Lane was at his side. Sergeant Webb commanded the second wave. They were tired, and some were wounded. But none of them had asked to stay behind. "This is it," Morris said. "We breach, we find Thax, we end this war before it can spread. No Vorax leaves that ship unless they surrender." The launch signal came. Breach pods shot across the gap between ships. Point defense guns tried to stop them, but the Marines had disabled most of them during the station assault. The pods hit the flagship hull and drilled through. Morris was first out of his pod. The interior of the Vorax ship was dark and hot, designed for a species that hated bright light. He switched to thermal vision and kept moving. The Vorax crew was not prepared for borders. They had spent centuries conquering others. No one had ever brought the war to their own ships. They fought back with desperation. But desperation was not enough. Morris and Lane led teams toward the bridge. Webb took his squad to secure the engine room. Other teams spread through the ship, overwhelming crew members who had never faced combat. The path to the bridge was guarded by Thax's personal soldiers. They were larger than normal Vorax, covered in heavy armor. They stood in formation, blocking the corridor. "Elite guard," Lane observed. "Maybe 50 of them." Morris counted his Marines. 31. The math said they should wait for reinforcements. Morris did not care about the math. Standard breach pattern. Hit them hard, keep moving, do not stop until they are all down. The Marines attacked. The corridor became a storm of weapons, fire, and shouting voices. Elite guards fell, but they took Marines with them. Bodies dropped on both sides. The air filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Morris kept pushing forward. A guard swung at him with a massive blade. He dodged, fired twice, and stepped over the body. Lane was beside him, her weapon never stopping. Together they cut through the enemy formation like a blade through cloth. When it was over, 43 elite guards lay dead. The Marines had lost 9. Morris felt each death like a wound in his own chest. But he could not stop now. The bridge was just ahead. The doors were sealed, but Marine engineers had brought cutting tools. They burned through the locks in 2 minutes. Morris kicked the doors open and walked onto the Vorax command bridge. Supreme Commander Thax stood in the center of the room. He was alone. His officers had fled or died. He held a large blade in 2 of his hands and a weapon in the other 2. "So," Thax said, "the famous human Marines. I have heard stories about you. How you fight without fear. How you never surrender. I did not believe the stories. Until today." Morris stopped 10 meters away. "Drop your weapons. Surrender, and you will be treated as a prisoner of war." Thax laughed bitterly. "Surrender? I am Supreme Commander of the Vorax Dominion. I have conquered worlds. I have ended civilizations. I do not surrender to anyone." "Then you die," Morris said simply. Thax charged. He was fast for his size, crossing the distance in seconds. His blade came down in an arc that should have split Morris in half. Morris sidestepped. His rifle came up. He fired once. Thax stumbled. He looked down at the hole in his chest with confusion. How? I am the greatest warrior of my generation. No, Morris replied. You were a bully who attacked the weak. You never fought anyone who could fight back. He fired again. Now you have. Thax fell. His body made a heavy sound when it hit the deck. The bridge was silent. Lane checked his vitals. He is dead, sir. Morris nodded. Signal the fleet. The flagship is ours. The Supreme Commander is down. The battle was over. 3 days later, a Galactic Council fleet arrived at Kithara Station. They found the situation already resolved. The Vorax forces had surrendered completely. Their fleet was captured. Their soldiers were prisoners. Their Supreme Commander was dead. Ambassador Daniel Price stood before the Council representatives on the station's main deck. He looked tired, but proud. Beside him stood Commander Monroe, Captain Morris, Captain Cole, and the surviving Marines. We are glad you came, Price said. But as you can see, the crisis has been handled. The council leader, an elderly being from a species Monroe did not recognize, stared at the humans with something like wonder. One ship. You defeated 43 enemy vessels and retook an entire station with 1 ship and 200 soldiers. 200 Marines, Price corrected gently. There is a difference. So I see. General Sirtok stepped forward. His wound had healed enough for him to walk without help. I wish to make a formal statement for the council records. I have served in the Ilari military for 60 years. I have fought many battles and led many soldiers, but I have never seen anything like what I witnessed here. He looked at the Marines. These humans are not ordinary soldiers. When my forces broke, they held. When all hope was lost, they fought on. When mercy would have been easier, they protected the innocent instead. I owe them my life. We all do. Delegate Voran added his voice. My species, the Kethari, have always believed that war was wrong. That violence solved nothing. I still believe that unnecessary violence is evil, but these Marines taught me something important. Sometimes, violence is necessary to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The humans understand this better than anyone in the galaxy. The council leader was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. The Galactic Council formally thanks the United Terran Republic for their assistance. We also extend an invitation. We would like Earth to become a full member of the Council, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. Price smiled. We accept. And we promise to be good allies. When trouble comes, we will be there. Of that, the council leader said, I have no doubt. As the formal ceremonies ended, Commander Monroe found Captain Morris standing alone near a window. He was watching the stars, his face thoughtful. What are you thinking about? She asked. The ones we lost. Good soldiers, good friends, they deserve to go home. Monroe stood beside him. They saved thousands of lives. Their sacrifice meant something. Sacrifice meant something. I know. It still hurts. That is because you are human. Monroe said. We feel our losses. We remember our dead. That is what makes us different from species like the Vorax. We never forget the cost of war. Morris nodded slowly. I suppose you are right. The next week, the Marines prepared to leave. The Relentless had been repaired enough to travel, and there were other places that needed them. Other battles to fight, other people to protect. The station residents gathered to see them off. Aliens from 12 different species stood in the docking bay, waving and cheering. Many of them cried. The humans had saved their lives, and they would never forget. A small Dwarven child broke away from the crowd and ran to Corporal Lane. It was the same child who had peeked through the shelter door during the battle. She threw her thin arms around Lane's leg and hugged tight. Thank you, the child said. Thank you for saving us. Lane knelt down and hugged her back. You are welcome, little one. Stay safe. As the Marines boarded their ship, General Sirtok approached Morris one last time. Captain, I have a question. Ask. The Vorax begged for mercy at the end. After everything they did, All the people they killed, you still spared them. Why? Morris considered the question. Because showing mercy when you have the power to destroy is the hardest thing in the universe. Anyone can kill, but choosing not to kill when you could, that takes real strength. He paused. We wanted to show the galaxy that humans are not just warriors. We are protectors. There is a difference. Sirtok bowed his head. I understand. And I am grateful. The Relentless departed from Cathara Station an hour later. It left behind a station full of grateful beings and a galaxy that would never look at humans the same way again. The Vorax Dominion withdrew from Council space within a month. They had learned a lesson that would echo through their history for generations. Never threaten those under human protection, and never, ever make the Terran Marines come for you.